Maybe. Oh, maybe we are live. There we go.
Being a Northwest guy is you're raising a batting cage, you're raising an indoor facility, you're taking ground balls off of, you know how to work in limited space.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, and I know I'm biased because I'm a Northwest guy, but I will take a Northwest guy over somebody from another area any day of the week. I just think they're tougher. I just think they're tougher guys.
I think that's one of the best things about baseball is it still is a way that you can really develop toughness and develop, loyalty and all those kinds of things that we want out of young men in particular.
Welcome to the Pacific Northwest Fungo Banter Podcast, where we highlight all of the great coaches of the Pacific Northwest. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Sorensen, Jason Jarrett, and Kelly Gow. Well, welcome back, Pacific Northwest Fungo Banner fans. We are beyond excited to be back with you again as we are here with another guest, and we're doing a live episode. I'm thrown off right now because I had a live read that was all scheduled to go here, and it didn't work, but that's okay because we're brought to you by our great sponsors of the podcast, kicking things off with Max BP. Go check them out as they are the #1 hand-eye training tool. Mass amount of reps you can get. They throw fastballs, they throw curveballs, left hand, right hand sliders. A lot of reps, a great machine, a great tool to have in your program. Go check them out, maxbp.com. Also, Safeguard out of the Tri-Cities, all the Fungo Banner gear that we have. They are the ones that make it and do such a great job. Go check out Top Tier Sports. If you're looking for a summer baseball tournament still, go check those guys out. I'm sure there's plenty in the Northwest in a town near you. And reach out to Kelly, flood his DMs because he loves that, and he could probably set you in the right spot. Devo Bats, if you need your fungos for your staff this year, give those guys a call. Get things set up for your season. And AstroTurf, welcome to the sponsorship of this season, and they're the premier sports turf of Major League Baseball. And like we talked about, we didn't like it. We didn't like the ending of the game, but the turf the Toronto Blue Jays played on was put in by AstroTurf. And before we get to our guest, we've had a lot of Mariners talk this year, guys. I wore the hat tonight because they did it. They actually signed Josh Naylor, and they did not wait till March to do it. Wow. What, are we shocked or what? Woohoo! Made for a good thing after the Seahawks game last night. So without further ado, let's go ahead and enter our guest tonight. This is exciting. This is our first planned live guest we have. We have head coach from Tacoma Community College, Ian Sanderson, jumping on the call with us tonight. Coach, thank you so much, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited.
We are fired up. And right away, our first hard-hitting question we ask everybody, what's your favorite fungo?
It's been a long time since I've hit a fungo, to be honest. I'm partial to the old Louisvilles. Those are the ones I had, the 35-inch. Because the reason I started going with those is because Griffey always had a black bat back in the day. And then I just never got away from it.
I love that. Absolutely.
That's sweet.
I had the black glove, had the black bat.
Yep.
It was how it was supposed to be. Talk us through your path in baseball from your playing days, and then what got you into coaching and where you've all been through quite a bit of success in your career.
Yeah, it's been kind of, as a player, there wasn't a lot of success. I was kind of a bad player, to be honest. It was average player in high school, got lucky to get on at a junior college at Grace Harbor. Wasn't very good there. And then kind of ended the career as a player and tried to figure out what I wanted to do. And I ended up at Central Washington University and with somebody that we were talking about a little bit ago, Joe Avila, and I coached I believe it was 13U All-Star team, or rec league team, excuse me. It was Babe Ruth. And then I got into working at Brooklyn Baseball Academy that was down in Yakima. And then I got hired as a high school coach at Kent Meridian. That was an interesting experience, to say the least, at Kent Meridian High School. And then got hired at a school down in California. It's no longer in existence, but Antelope Valley. And then I got hired up at Lower Columbia in 2015. And then I was there until 2021. I took a job at Oakland University out in Michigan, and then came back and was kind of a stay-at-home dad for a year. And wife decided that I needed to get out of the house, so I went and took an opportunity at Driveline. Spent about a year there, and then the job at Tacoma came open, and it worked out perfect. It's it's 15, 20 minutes from where my wife and I live now currently, and didn't have to pick anything up. And it's kind of the round. I've spent some time in the West Coast League. I mean, I was in Wenatchee and Victoria, and with the Portland Pickles before they were the Portland Pickles. It was the Gresham Grey Wolves. And then the most, I think, obscure one was Fort McMurray Giants in Alberta, Canada. We were about 80 miles south of the Northwest Territory.
Wow.
So it was kind of in the middle of nowhere.
That'd be pretty cool, Coach. And what kind of experience was that, coaching up that environment up there?
It was a fun place to be honest. It was a little bit different than I think you would get now, because they had a massive fire rip through the entire town, and there was only 10% of the buildings were left from in the actual city from that fire, and so everything was being rebuilt. And so there was a lot of community involvement in everything that we did, whether it was camps. I mean, you had every off day, we had guys helping out, build places up there to help kind of recover everything. It's a big oil community. So you got oil fields everywhere, and there's a lot of outside money that we were kind of cool to see this happen, of people that don't really do anything except for work there, putting in money and time back into that community. I'd say the bus rides were the worst thing, because it was about 5.5 hours was the closest trip.
Oh.
We had multiple that were double digits. And you didn't play series back then. I think they've switched in that league now. So you would play one game in Edmonton, go down to Okotos, and then over to Brooks, and then back to Edmonton, and then back home to play again.
Wow. That's awesome. That'd be a lot.
A lot of good chatter on those rides, though. Plenty of good chatter.
Yeah, I mean, we had
Or rest.
So part of the rules in that league is you had to have 60% of your roster had to be Canadian.
Really?
So you were getting a lot of talented guys actually from Canada. And then in the U.S., you would have a handful here and there. So it was, we'll say, interesting at best.
Right. Yeah. You know, it was funny. I was having the conversation with another coach today about the stops along the way in a coaching career. And I have one that I got done playing at Central, and I went back to my alma mater in the same town of Kittitas, and I've been coaching there as an assistant and head coach for a very long time now. But, you know, talk about your different stops along the way. Just feel like you've learned, and you were able to coach with so many different people through that, like that, to make that become your identity of who you are as a coach today.
Yeah, I mean, I think you learn what you grow up as a man in this industry pretty quickly. And so you have values of who you are as a human, and then you got to find out what is going to work for your personality. And I think there's good in every coach that you have, regardless of what the ultimate feeling is of that person. And I think you find negative in everybody. You know, Coach Smith up at University of Washington was the head coach at Lower Columbia at the time. The guy taught me how to be extremely organized and set standards, so you didn't have to blow up. You just had a set of standards. Everybody knew, everything was clear, everything was organized, and guys just knew if you failed at this was a repercussion, or this is what would happen. So you kind of hold your sanity a little bit better as a coach. I think you could lose your mind really quickly inside of this game. And then, you know, certain guys, you know, had a ton of baseball knowledge that I worked with that I didn't always agree with how it came across. So taking what they portrayed and what they were talking about and trying to find my own voice inside of some of their good knowledge. You know, I worked with a guy up in Victoria. His name was Brian McRae, played in the big leagues for, I don't know, 8-10 years, something like that. He was a guy that never screamed and yelled, and he was a guy that could get his point across because people respected when he spoke. They just knew that it was real. It wasn't a guy that over talked just to talk. You know, he also had some ability to back it up if he really wanted to back still then. And so finding a way, and then, you know, a guy named Brian Moses, who was at McPherson, is now turned them into an NAI powerhouse and then left and took a job in California and in junior college. He was a guy that was very, very dry with his players and very just straightforward and no BS, kind of no regard for feelings a little bit. Just here's where I see you, here's where it's at. And so, you know, taking a little bit from everybody, I think, is important. And that's kind of where it's at. And I think reevaluating each year of what I liked and didn't like out of myself is something that I've started doing every break. So after fall, have meetings, you know, exit meetings with players and coaches. And this year I tried something different. I had the coaching staff give me an exit meeting. You let them get their opinions put out there and where they see things and what they're into and where they think we need to go. Because as a staff, we have to be connected. And so I thought it was something interesting and different. And who knows if it was worth it or not? We'll find out soon.
I think that's huge, Coach. I mean, just even not only in, you know, your coach's circle, but just even you imagine a boss coming to all his employees and saying, okay, you guys are going to write an assessment about me openly and we'll discuss it, you know. And I think that's a reflection of your leadership. And I think that's kudos to you. And, you know, I hope, you know, most of our listeners will take that on. I mean, I'm just, my wheels are spinning. It's just ways of improving year in, year out, just the same way you're talking. But I think that's really key, that there's an expectation to the player. You know, there's a clarity to what we expect of you coming in, you know. And I think that's part of the problem too, is a lot of kids coming into programs and they're still trying to figure out, you know, it's the first year away from mom and dad, you know, and just the uncertainty and, you know, class roles and maybe if they're on campus or off campus, there's a lot going on. And I think that, you know, if you can be clear and to the point, it does make their job just a little bit easier on the field.
Yeah. Another thing I took from Eddie was practice plans are out by 10 a.m. every day. So guys and practice doesn't start till 2. They've got amplitude of time to read it, to know what their job is each day. So then it's attack it instead of thinking about it.
And hold accountable if you didn't know what was on the practice plan that day, right? I've heard some great LC stories about showing up and not knowing what practice planning was for that day, which is great.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the right mindset for any of us to be in all walks of life, but in coaching especially, there's so many avenues and resources and good information out there, you know, whether in-person contacts, social media, reading, if books are still a thing for people, plenty of info to mold yourself off of, and being open-minded is important. And I think we're all guilty of being closed-minded on a couple things here and there. And, you know, the more that you can create trust within a staff, which obviously something like that is going to do, you know, the more buy-in you get, the more feedback you get. You know, they don't feel anger or fear of coming to you with ideas and thoughts and things, because you know they know that you respect their opinions and their feedback. But yeah, maybe off air you can give me the Hatton information of what he said. That'd be fun to listen to.
No, I mean, to be honest, he's been great so far. You know,
Yeah,
I
good.
got one of Kelly's ex guys is on the staff now. There, you know, he played for me for a summer, so there was a little bit of a relationship there.
Yeah.
but no, it's been very easy, to be honest. He just came in with a plan, and I know Kelly and I have spoken about this, off air, about new guys coming on staff and young guys, trying to give them their freedom, but also keep them inside of an umbrella. And there hasn't ever been an issue with Coach Hatton. So it's and he's been very open about things that he needs help with and doesn't quite understand, and things that, hey, can I try this, that, or the other? And I think his honesty of needing guidance a little bit has opened up my freedom to give him whatever he chooses to do.
Yeah, and I think we all know this, transitioning from playing or into our first coaching days of your knowledge base is based off of the people that you're around and your upbringing as a player, right? Whether that's your little league coach, your high school coach, beyond that, and coaches at the college level, like your network's so much broader, like as far as the people that you have conversations with, whether it's in recruiting, at recruiting events, like bouncing ideas off of one another, league meetings. I mean, you guys, conventions, all those things. There's so much growth as a coach. And I think, not to knock players in general, but you're somewhat closed-minded at times about your thoughts and opinions. It's win-loss, and win, we don't really talk about it, and loss, we do a really good job at pointing fingers of why it happened. But the coaching is so much more of a thinking man's game of, living by your convictions and the things that worked out or didn't work out. And if you surround yourself by enough good people, like you mentoring a young coach like that, I mean, you're going to, broaden horizons of what you should do or what you could do. And that's the fun part. The fun part is being able to analyze situations, to get to talk to people about situations and having them pop up in real time and seeing what happens. Right. So good on you.
Yeah. It's been good with him. I mean, I got two young coaches, and so it's been awesome. Like Coach Matheny and then Coach Sagdahl, who's been with me since day one. He kind of knows where I'm at, and we have a pretty good open. Coach Matheny played for me some years ago, and so I think a lot of the success we have is because of those three. And one thing I learned along the way is you have to give coaches the ability to fail and succeed just as players to make your team successful. And I think those young guys have noticed. They're smart enough men to understand, like, hey, this worked really well. This didn't. This was kind of stupid and didn't work out. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really get on them about stuff they do with players at practice. It's more, if I have an issue, it's maybe communication or smaller things that happen in the office, where if you want to be a coach at the college level, you got to realize that you're not coaching a lot of baseball at that level. You're more just in the office.
I had a great conversation with another guy this week. You're hitting a bunch of stuff. I've been talking to people. I've been in a tractor all week. We're staring at a windshield, so I've had a lot of baseball time. But talking about how, I guess not necessarily maybe at the college level, but like the high school level, there's some guys that they have a hard time delegating. They want to have control over everything. But if we are to run a successful staff, we have to be able to delegate roles and trust guys. So, maybe talk us through how you've built that within your guys. And I know it's a lot of who you hire and who you trust, but like you still got to build that with your relationships.
The first year I wasn't very good at it, to be honest. Yeah. I wanted my hand in everything, whether it was just wanting control, whether it was an ego thing, whether it was, your first time, you want to prove to everybody that you can do everything as well as you ever did it as an assistant. And it did take me a little bit of time, to probably season and a half, to realize that I need to let the reins go on certain things. And so it has been a transition for me as well as those guys. And it wasn't easy at first. But I did. So Coach Matheny and Coach Sagdahl have been with me for a couple of years. When Coach Hatton came in, it's funny we bring him up. And, I've normally been a pitching coach, but I brought a pitching coach in because I think our staff needed a little bit more attention. And a head coach, it's hard to give full attention to just a quarter of the roster. And I told the Sagdahl and I told Matheny, if I start to step into the bullpen too much, you need to pull me out of it. And Coach Matheny, probably 2 weeks in, goes, hey, go for a walk. And I knew exactly what he meant. And I then kind of stood away and let Coach Hatton do his thing, And so it's not an easy thing. And it's a process for me as well. But again, just being clear on what you want as the umbrella, and let guys go. As long as they stay underneath that umbrella, let them go and do what they do. And I think also the different personalities on staff really makes a positive thing inside of the staff, as well. As if you have too many of the same personalities, it's hard to reach everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's so true. Did that kind of just come to a point of your season? You finish, you're going into another season. You're just like, trying, how as coaches, we're always trying to improve our craft, right? And how we build our programs. But was it something significant? Was it something that you read or heard that just said, hey, I'm going to make this a point to really make an effort to trust my guys?
It was a conversation with my dad, actually. My parents, they're both retired, and my dad was a construction worker for 30 years. My mom was a teacher and a principal for out in the middle of kind of nowhere, closest city of Shelton that they're in. So we're out of their house talking, and he asked me, he's like, okay, so you got Coach Matheny coming in, he's young, he's never coached. What are you going to do? And I kind of said, well, here's what I'm going to have him do, this, this, and this. And he just looked at me and goes, are you going to ever ask him a question? And that's all it kind of really took, to be honest, was, okay, maybe I am kind of being a little bit of an egomaniac and a little bit over the top. Maybe I do need to just sit back and ask a question. And that's all it really took, to be honest.
Well, before we go to our next question, anyone has a question? Next question. Anyone has a question for Coach Sanderson? Please throw it in the chat. Any chat, any social media platform that you might have. Love to go through some at the end. Maybe we got some prizes around. We got some prizes hanging around. Something to give away. Some things to give away.
We'll throw out a free hat to the best question.
Oh,
maybe a sweatshirt.
No tractor rides. I mean, it's the holiday season. You got to give a
always,
tractor ride.
Always tractor rides available. Conversations on the phone.
He's already got the lights right on the outside of it. It's around the wheels.
Some canned corn from the summer harvest.
Oh yeah, we had
really sweeten the pot.
That's right.
Sweeten the pot. We'll talk about your first couple of years there, man. Like I know if it's peeling off a Band-Aid for you. You probably got a point of reflection now right before season, but going the distance back-to-back years and falling just short, is it motivating? I mean, obviously after the first year, probably really easy to motivate into the next year. After back-to-back, I mean, the fact that you're one of the top teams in the NWACC should build confidence within you, your staff, and your players. But as far as setting the tone for that third year to get back there, which we know is a challenge to do.
Yeah.
How did you kind of set the tone this year, and maybe talk about some of those runs you guys had the last 2 years to get there, kind of some of those experiences and what it took?
Yeah. The first year it was interesting. You step in as a new coach in the program. A lot of the schools in the NWACC, they hire within. So there's already a relationship. There's not a lot of outside movement. So that was a challenge in itself that first year. Guys you didn't recruit, trying to retain everybody. And the runs were special in their different ways. We go in and we're a little thin because of some injuries in that first year, and we win the West, which give us some time to recoup. And we go in and we have a great group of guys that play in the field, and we're two arms that are, arguably we're two of the best arms in the NWACC that year. And then we kind of had just a little bit of downfall. I think some of it comes to immaturity as me as a head coach in that first year. In playoff baseball, it's different. It just really is different. And you get into those moments and you learn that you need to have a plan and stick to your plan and live and die by the guys that have gotten you there. And I think that first year got a little excited, a little immature, and got outside of the guys that got us there and put a few guys into some roles that they shouldn't have been in. And, that one hurt, but I think also proved that to myself that I'm ready to go. I think it was the biggest one. Year 2 was a different group, different team, different, at the junior college level, it's so funny. You have guys for 2 years, but the team is so different each year. And we go in there and we have a really good offense and we have some good arms, and we are kind of thinned out as you get towards the end of the year. We make a great run again, and this one hurt, I think, worse than the first one, because we went in and we did everything we had to do. Kind of went on a great run of coming behind in the 7th inning in the super regionals. We had to come from behind in extras against Edmonds. We go in and the first 2 games are in extra innings, and then we start to cruise a little bit and make it a little bit easier on ourselves and do it in the 4th inning and 5th versus the 8th and 9th. And the reason I say that one probably hurt a little bit more is we put guys in the right position. We put guys, I've gone through it a bunch of different times. I don't think we would have changed anything. Looking at hindsight, yeah, you could change a bunch of stuff, but we put together a game plan with the coaching staff, and I thought it went the right way, and it just didn't pan out. And that's always tough when, it's a freshman on the mound that feels like he's the one that lost the game for you. But in reality, there's 17 other opportunities that lost the game for us. It's not that one. And so putting that back together a little bit for me is just, it's setting the tone early of this is the expectation. Our goals are to be playing our best baseball in May. We're going to have some ups and downs. We're going to have some bumps and bruises here and there. But to just be happy to be at a field is not ever acceptable. To wanting to be great, we talk about it all the time. Being pretty good is never good. Being great is being great. If you're pretty good, you're also coming in, you're not coming in first. You don't have the right mindset. And so we talk about that early. And so it's just coming in and prepare guys hard in the fall. Everybody tries to do it. Everybody does it. I'm a little bit more militant in the fall. I'm a lot harder on guys in the fall so we can prepare. So then it comes to game times and season. That's the players' time to shine. And then our practices are, more of learning opportunities than setting tones and all that kind of stuff. And so there, I'd say the second one was the tougher one because, like you said, it's pretty easy to get excited after year one. The one you feel like you're prepared for and miss out is a tougher pill to swallow.
So, Coach, how does that kind of move you guys into this upcoming season? I mean, you got some momentum a little bit, you got some experience, you got some playoff experience is the biggest thing, but what is 2026 going to look like for you guys?
So putting, the biggest one is putting my thoughts aside and saying, hey, this program needs this to get over this hump. And what that was a pitching coach, to be honest. I just wasn't able to be present enough everywhere to feel like I was doing the right job as a head coach. And so we did go out and get a pitching coach. And then we went out and recruited pretty heavy on the pitching side. And so now if we lose a couple guys here and there because of injuries, I don't feel very uncomfortable with what our numbers are and the quality of numbers. It's, we want to have 1 through 10. We'd love to be able to start 1 through 10 and then have 5 guys that we know are true bullpen guys. And we just didn't have those numbers quite the first 2 years. And so we changed how we recruited and what we were going after. Didn't panic in any aspect, just we've got to do something a little bit different to get over the hump. And so we did, and we have a good crop of freshmen on the bump. We're going to be fairly young. We got 2 good leaders at the top, with a guy that was a bullpen arm last year as a sophomore. We only have 4 sophomore arms, but good leadership. And we have some freshmen that have been really good so far this fall. And so I think offensively, we're in a different place, which I love. We were a little bit more of live and die by the long ball. This year, we're not. We have a couple guys that can thump it out of the yard, but we're more of a contact line drive, run a little bit, cause chaos on the base pass is what we're going to try to be. Now, if it works out that way, that's a whole different story. But on the mound, I feel really comfortable. I feel that there is 8 guys really pushing to be starters for us right now, which is great for us. Tough for the coaching staff to make a decision, but great for us overall.
How do you foresee like those battles playing out? Do you get to the point where you get 8-6 and eventually just have to throw a dart at a dartboard and assume that's going to work out? But is it how guys come back from break? Is it some preseason scrimmages? At some point in time you have to make a decision. But when do you feel like it'll be a couple days before where you're having to make a tough one?
No, we're gonna go. We've already set our date. July 20th or January 20th is gonna be our date to make a decision. Then that gives our starters enough time to get on a weekly routine to get prepared for a season starts. So it's gonna be who come back the right way. You can tell right away what guys did and didn't do in the off season. And so, there is a couple sophomores that have had time as a starter, and I think they'll probably get a little bit longer leash to be in that role if we need to make changes than, say, a freshman might get. But we're going to have, I think, at least 1 freshman on the bump as a starter. And I think we're going to have 6 of them that are going to play massive roles in high-intent situations for us. And so it could change, as you guys know. The roster the lineup doesn't stay the same from game 1 to 52. So, I mean, we have our dates and we're going to go with it. And what we're going to do is the coaching staff is going to have a meeting. Everybody gets to bring up their guys and we're going to hash it out inside the office. And how I like to do that piece of it is I like to go last. So I like the assistants to have all their say without any bias information from me. And then if it comes down to it, we need to have arguments. We'll do that, and we'll get it all out. And on that, which is my favorite part, to be honest with you, is those arguments inside the coach's office of who should play. Because that means we've done a couple of things right, and guys are fighting for their guys, and I love that. So I really do value those arguments / headbutting sessions inside the coach's office.
It could almost become a reality TV show, kind of like what they do with the NFL. You get the cameras into the meeting rooms.
I don't know if I want them in my office. I'll tell you that.
I'm just saying for the spectators, watching it, it's cheap entertainment.
Yeah,
man.
There might need to be a dump button every once in a while.
But I think too is like that's so good because you have so much respect for your dudes, right? Like I'm saying, your dudes, these are your guys you're working with, right? And I think if you can't feel as a coach, like even assistant coach, to say how you feel about a situation and It's kind of like your pitching coach telling you, okay, coach, move on. Like it's nothing to, you're not taking any personal strike at that. That's huge respect, and that's like that brotherhood, and that's what you need as a staff. And if you don't have that as a staff, I mean, your players see it, right? I mean, they pick that stuff up, and then they're trying to pick and choose who are they following, who are they listening, because you're saying one thing, and then your pitching coach is saying another thing, and then your infielder coach is saying another thing, And so I think it's so big, especially on the high school side of it. You get a lot of mixed personalities, and you got some guys or coaches or dads, and maybe coaches kids since the league, but all those little things, I mean, you kind of have to just put those, leave them at outside the fence, and when you walk between those lines, you're here to grind, and let's compete, so
yeah, I mean, we can have those kind of disagreements, and learn this throughout the time is we can disagree all we want as long as it stays in the office.
Yeah.
Once we're done with that, we're all saying the same thing, going in the same direction.
Mm-hmm. Because it's 100% saying that too. Because like I talked to our guys, if you have a problem with what I say and what we're doing, that's fine. I guess you're entitled to that, but we cannot have that negative conversation in front of our players, right? Because we set the tone of the program. It starts there. If we want our team to be functional, we have to be functional, at least to the public eye. And we are in the most part, but I'm just, it's
and I think players are the public eye too. You know what I mean? Like the players are the biggest public eye is
right.
They're with all they're exposed to on social media and everything now, they're not as naive as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You get away with that back 20 years ago. I don't think you're getting away with some of that stuff now.
No. Yeah. No, that's the function of the family starts at the top, just like mom and dad, right? Like,
yep,
it's a big one. Our listeners keep going up and up. And for anybody new that's joining the podcast right now, please drop your comments, questions, concerns in the little link over here. And
give me some concerns, lots of concerns,
lots of concerns, questions, anything, funny stories about Coach if you're watching that you are familiar with them, and we will have a listener recap here at the end of this thing. But talking about that and getting to this point in the season with their coaches, and if Jason and Kelly, if you guys aren't ready to move on, jump in now. But the world of recruiting these days, and things have changed so much, and I feel like in such a short period of time. Maybe we'll start off with this thing, the impact of the portal for the NWACC. Like, how has this changed? Because we're going through it now with trying to find high school guys plots to go, and just I feel like everything's starting to trickle down and seeing where everything's at.
It is. I think we're a few years, obviously a few years behind where Division I is at. Right now, it's getting tough to find guys homes as they move on. It's getting easier to find an abundance of players that are at the high school level that we kind of can hand pick and choose a little bit more. But we also have to be mindful at our level of in and out. Is getting guys out is just as important because that's part of our reputation as well, as winning, developing guys, and getting them moved on to the right programs. And most kids want that Division I experience, and it's becoming a little bit tougher. And this year, I think, is the year that changes for the high school kid. Is a lot of kids are saying, I'm going to wait for that D1 opportunity. What they don't realize to a certain extent is in about a couple of weeks, that number is going to be cut down to 34 on that roster. And then there's another, if you have 302 Division I programs, that's another 1,800 kids back in the portal. And then they can go pick and choose again where they want to go, basically, because it's, the kid that played in the SEC, let's say last year, or even had a fall in the SEC, he's going to get an opportunity to go to a mid-major, and they're going to be ecstatic to have him because they got a kid that has some SEC experience. Or they decide, I want to go back to division or junior college. And so it's kind of a waiting. And I'd say this early period is now getting later for us as a whole. And I'd say it's mostly pitchers right now that are kind of doing the waiting. Position players, I think, are starting to see, that the roster sizes are just shrinking, and the number of freshmen in general are shrinking at the college level. And so it's becoming a dance that you have to be very fluid with. And things that we did 4 years ago, we can't do it the same way now. And so it's kind of trial by error a little bit. And it's also, the players have a lot more power than they used to because of social media. They have more of a reach throughout the country. And it used to be when, back when I played in the early 2000s, you had to be seen. And if nobody saw you, then you didn't play.
Mm-hmm.
And so these kids have the reach to go out and, expose themselves to a school in Virginia or Florida. And so finding the balance of what's the right timeline to put on kids that you can also protect your program is a big one. And my opinion is, after seeing it go down this year, is waiting for the higher end, like arms specifically, is going to come down to the first window of signing period for the Division I level. And then we're going to see which way it goes. Do they start going to the Division II route, or they just start going to the junior college route? I still think there's a lot of questions about which way everything falls. So it's an interesting animal right now.
One thing I heard pop up, and if you're not privy to talk about it yet, feel free to ignore the question. But I heard a rumor that NWACC talking about percentage of year played for first year players to potentially get redshirt years like we see in college football right now. I think it's 4 or less games played in. Those guys can still be redshirt players. But do you have any knowledge of where that's at now and where that might be going for the NWACC specifically?
I do know about it. It's been talked about. I think there's a lot more layers of voting that has to go before it becomes a real thing. Mm-hmm. I think that we need to really look at the pros and cons of this as a whole for the NWACC before we jump into it, because I think there are some negatives and I think there are some positives with it. Mm-hmm. And that piece I'll keep to myself until I'm a little more advanced in the process to be able to talk about that. But yeah, I also don't know what with the portal, is that going to help a ton or is it going to hurt? Mm-hmm. I just don't really know.
Oh, yeah, I think with the one thing we know right now in recruiting is that with how much movement and things are happening, teams at the top levels trickling down are generally older than they have been before, right? I mean, just older players, whether that's former red shirts or medical red shirts or, purely just transfers moving around. There's benefit to being an older player, and being an older player, you're just physically more mature than the high school player is. And now you put a roster limitation further cutting down the developmental player that a Division I team would carry in their roster. And naturally, there's just more physicality and age at all levels of baseball. So you look at the high school freshmen, that even if you work your tail off, a very small percentage have that physical maturity to be able to go in and compete with a 22-year-old, 23-year-old right away, right? So, I mean, personally, I could see that being a case that could benefit the player and being able to move on. But, I mean, you mentioned it too, being able to move players on has become harder because you're the same as everyone now, right? Before the Division I, having to sit out a year and doing that really swayed people from moving because it wasn't necessarily worth it. Unless it's a freshman, they could kick back to you and then move on after that. So the movement just wasn't there. So now you're competing with, like you said, the SEC that's your competition, which is kind of funny. And if you think about it, like in recruiting, like you're competing with the SEC and the trickle down of that to be there. And I think there's even more responsibility on coaches to develop that physicality piece to make sure that your players are looking the same as, what the kid from wherever, name the school, is trying to move on from.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many unknowns.
Crazy.
It is
go ahead.
Go ahead, Kel.
No,
I was
you
just
got
going
it.
to say
You got
it
it.
is kind of a crazy time of life. I mean, just where we are in the game, and I think it's that triple down effect, right? And I think it even gets down to the high school kids. You get so many kids that want to go D1. I get it, but the reality is just so thin. I mean, it's probably much harder as it is now than it has ever been. So, Coach, what is some advice you could give to that high school coach that's listening right now that, he's got a senior, he's a pretty good player. I mean, what direction, do they push him? Did you go to the 2-year aspect? Do you try to push him more into the 4-year? What do you got?
For me, it's finding the right fit for the player. And this is, kind of the unconventional, I think, at our level thinking is finding the right fit versus just focusing on a level.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the D1 or bust thought process is all fake. It's been put onto the kid and he's forced to have that thought process.
Mm-hmm.
You can go be number 40 on the 40-man roster for a Division I that won 5 games last year, or you can come be number 6 or 7 at a junior college, or you can be number 10 at a Division II school and have a chance to compete at 2 of those schools versus not much of a chance at one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I think they see the NIL as something that's going to change lives. And at baseball, yes, there is some NIL, but football and basketball are getting most of that money. Baseball is the avenue to get you your education and pay that way to get through life, because most of us aren't going to be in the game of baseball forever.
Mm-hmm.
And, so we do a thing here, like at our level, getting your degree, your 2-year degree, moving on with a 3.5 or above puts you in a really good spot to be able to get a huge package put together on very minimal baseball money, which makes you a lot more recruitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, to me, it's just about fit. For high school players, it's about fit. You can go, like I said, go be number 40 on a 40-man roster and get 2 extra T-shirts and a pair of shoes and all that kind of stuff, or be a guy that gets to compete every day and has a chance to really play, and then possibly be at a better school than that Division I school that was there at high school. If you want to play pro ball, being at a Division I school isn't the only way to get there. Being on the field is the only way to get you there.
Absolutely.
Kelly, you look like you got something to say before.
Yeah, I mean, the other reality of it too now is that, you could move a guy on to a Division II, Division III NAI school. He goes off. He could very well be Division I player senior year now. Like that stuff firmly exists. And I think, Ian, you hit it with, like, you got to, as you climb, you have to be at a place where you're in the mix, right? That's the top 12 hitters. It's the top 8 to 10 arms. Like, you have to be in that mix in order to be successful. And not that, like, you're going to necessarily start there at all times. Like, but by your sophomore year at a junior college, by your upperclassman year at a 4-year school, like, you got to put yourself in that spot to be in the mix. And I think the mindset's changing a little bit now to that, hopefully. And I know we parade that around a lot in what we talk and what we preach.
Because there is so many good programs that are not just Division I programs.
Right.
Even in the Northwest, I think there's. I mean, you can go look at Northwest Nazarene last year, massive run, Division II school. Bushnell and Lewis and Clark State NAI schools,
right?
Naming a few of them, and then Central's always got a chance to be phenomenal. You know, and it's just there's so many good schools, and it just goes back to the Twitter post is not as important as being on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope we're in that shift, like you said, changing the mindset a little bit.
Always chasing the clout. You know, you want the easy way, not the hard way. And, you know, I think that there's a lot of players that don't work out if they're taking on that mindset that once I get to that next spot, I'm good. I can sit back. I got it in the bag. I've done it. Mission accomplished. Done.
That's even worse.
BC, your turn.
Well,
Let's go. You've been ready. You've been ready.
Just having that conversation with guys lately too about like, go find where you're going to play. I always told my guys that, hey, you know, first off, is the coach, is he a good dude? Is he a trustworthy guy? Is the school have what you're going to go study? And can you see yourself living in that town? Granted, it's a full day job of what you're doing, but I think it's even more important that exactly what you're saying. Go where you're going to play. You're not going to get, if your goal and aspirations are to move on after college baseball, you're not going to find it right in the pine somebody or somewhere. And even with the way the portal works and everything, it doesn't matter what level you go to. Like it's just a whole beast, man.
Yeah. And it's, you know, if you're coming to the 2-year level, it's all about getting your academics straight in a cheaper environment, first off, because you're not paying as much as you would at a 4-year institution, and finding out what you want to do, and then getting more physical and getting on the field. You know, one thing I do pride ourselves on is we have a 3, 4, 5 team GPA since I've been here at Tacoma. Most of our guys are getting a lot of academic money, which helps create them to be more recruitable. And, you know, we had one of the better hitters, if not the best hitter in the NWACC last year. He got multiple offers, visits, and he went with the one that he just felt like he was going to be in the mix. Even though he's going to a Division I school, he went right into the mix, and they gave him a good offer, and he ended up, as of right now, he is in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that quote-unquote bigger school and more high-profile schools that were kind of in on him that offered him, but he didn't feel like there was the same amount of opportunity for him.
For sure. Do you see fall signings right now kind of, I don't want to say plummeting, but do you think that there's been quite a decrease in NWACC guys fall signing now?
Yeah, I do. Obviously, there's going to be a couple arms here and there that always go early. And the position players have always kind of gone a little later in general in the NWACC. For whatever reason, that's just the way it's gone. But this year it's more about, I'm receiving more of, hey, can you send your guy to this junior college camp in January or December instead of, hey, let's sign him. Let's get all that stuff right now. So we've got a couple arms that are profile as Division I pitchers, and none of them have gotten any offers right now because they're all getting the same thing of, I need to be at this camp. Can I go to this camp? Do I love that? No, but that's also the part of the world we're in right now. And at the junior college level is, hey man, yeah, we'll get you ready for that. So I do think it's going down, and I think it's going to be a couple of years before we see that change back to a few more early signings.
What about the junior college player mindset? Do you feel like, and this is holistically speaking, but like there's so many guys we talked about, you know, going to junior college for that promise of Division I after that. Do you feel like there's more of a shift? You feel like you have to coach guys up a little bit about, you know, the percentages of guys moving on or the perception of where that's at? Like, you have to prep them early that like, hey, we're going to find the best opportunity, and no matter what, and it might not be a Division I school. And how is that kind of let down for some of those guys? I don't want to say let down, but like, I don't know, just process of realizing where you're at.
Yeah, no, it is a little bit of a letdown for guys when you have to have, that's one of the tougher things is having some real honest conversations with young men that tell them, hey, this is where we see you right now. These are the only guys that are getting phone calls for the Division I opportunities. So it's time for us to open our horizons up a little bit. And we start that in middle to late September for our sophomores. We put together Google Sheets and they have access to it. And I let them know who I've been talking to and who they talk to. And, I can pull it up right now and see everybody. I tell them to add their dream schools on there too. Give me 2 or 3 your dream schools and then have 5 to 10 realistic schools to start with. Guys feel uncomfortable putting their dream schools on there, which I find a little bit weird. Like, what's the worst they can say is no? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find the right spot to go. And I think guys are also getting a little bit more nervous at this level because of that lack of early signing period, signing guys. They're like, well, so-and-so had signed early last year and I'm on the same path as him. Yeah, but it's different year. It's different timing. It's different everything. And so we're pretty fluid with having the conversations, and we talk to guys and we tell them exactly where we see them. And we say, hey, we'll reach out to, the Vanderbilt for you, but the odds of you going there are super slim. So don't be shy. Don't be upset when they say no. But hey, in the same note, there's 3 Division II schools that really are interested and they're ready to give you as much money as they can. It's time to start looking down that road as well. So for me, it's a blend of don't fully cut the dream off of Division I, but start to open up their thoughts a little bit more, a little bit quickly.
That's the tough part on us too. I mean, everyone on this call right now has a hand in, moving players on. The other part, and I don't want to say reputation, but I mean, for lack of a better term, reputation, like you can't call the Vanderbilt for 35, 40 guys, right? Like you have to pick and choose when you're making your shots and making your calls. And, and we get it wrong. Like we ain't perfect. Like guys will end up being a lot better than we thought they could be. And those are the stories that you love, right? I kind of love being the coach that, you saw that he was good, but like, dang, he was that good. Good for him for putting in that work and doing what he could to get where he wanted to be. But yeah, that's the tough part too, is having those conversations with an open mind and not that you want them to be humbled, but I think everyone has their timeline and you should. And and as long as you're doing it before, August 1, there really isn't a too late. You can find spots at certain times. It might not be the money that you like, but have a realistic time window and share that with coaches and recruiting too. I mean, I don't poo-poo anyone. I think we've all said that on here. Always treat every school with respect. And you can say a comment of, hey, right now I'm researching other opportunities, but I'd really like to keep you guys in mind if something opens up later on. I'd love to reach back out. But there's a right way to do that to make sure you're not closing any doors. But at the end of the day, you have to be realistic about what your timeline is and really, really trust the people, multiple people in your corner to give you honest feedback, right? I think the more people you can have that are doing that, the better.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that get, I don't know how to say this the right way. They like to put their name on things, and so they push people in the wrong direction instead of really taking the young man and his family's wants and needs into consideration. And so I think being able to talk to coaches and not push certain levels away is a learned attribute that you can have inside of recruiting as a player. Because if you just flat out tell me, hey, I'm only looking Division I, okay, well, it's the middle of November. How many Division I offers do you have? 0. Okay, then what are we waiting on? They're not coming. I mean, and then so it's just like you said, making sure you have the right people in your corner,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that, I don't ever offer a kid any scholarship until mom and dad are on campus or have been on campus, because they're just as important in the process. They're giving their trust for us to help change their young, teenager into young adults. And so there has to be that trust that goes on there as well. And if, and I want them to feel comfortable as much as the player feels comfortable. And so that's another thing, is getting mom and dad and sitting everybody in one room and telling them everything that needs to be talked about. Hey, here's where we're at in the timelines. Here's where I think it goes. Now it's time for you guys to go. Here's all the information. Here's the paperwork. Now go talk to whoever you need to talk to together as a family.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works in our favor and sometimes it doesn't.
Yep. Always want guys that want to be at your school. Those are the right players. They want to be there. They're all in. They want to be coached. They want to get better. Guys that are half in or committed by a deadline or something else arbitrary, always going to be looking over their shoulder. Those are tougher guys to get in your corner for sure.
Well, Coach, let's kind of move ourselves to the bullpen here in a little bit, and as we kind of close out this thing, and just talk a little bit of pitching here. So
Don't forget, listeners, drop your questions in the chat. Okay, sorry, go Jason.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. So what kind of, for those young high school guys right now, we're sitting here near the end of November, and we'll kind of move into the college aspect too, but it's big time on the high school side, because you got a lot of coaches out there. They don't know what to do. They either got a kid over here paying money to get some training in, or they saw some YouTube video or some sort, but what kind of advice could you give that high school coach to kind of get his players, kind of in the rhythm of getting ready for March 1?
Yeah, the first thing I would ask the player is, when was the last time they competitively threw? When do you need to be ready?
Mm-hmm.
And so and then you map it out backwards. For me is, so if they're not till March, you could start in the next month and start building up. And then you got, November, December, January, February. By February, you're on the mound having some live at bats and ready to go. That's the very simplistic way to think about it. But it's also knowing, hey, did this kid play football? Is this kid going to play basketball? At our level, we don't have to worry about that really for the most part. But for high school coaches, I think it plays a factor. Do we start the kid throwing who just played two-way as a football player, or do we give him a little break to get rested up a little bit, and then start him on a little bit more of a plan? So it's knowing your guys, I think, is just as important as knowing what to give each kid. If he's going to play basketball, then you're going to have to work around certain timing things. You're going to have to work around that kind of stuff. But don't rush is the biggest one. Our guys get a couple weeks off after the fall season, and then they take a couple weeks where they're building back up, where they're not touching the mound competitively. They're doing some plyo balls on the mound, stuff like that, but they're not up there, ripping 90-mile-an-hour fastballs and sliders at hitters. They have 2 days, so their first 3 weeks of their buildup, they only have one high-intent day a week. The rest is just loose, easy actions. And so then you start to build up where it gets a little higher intent. They'll have scripted bullpens as they come back. So everything's mapped out for them. For us, it's a little easier because we knew what they did all fall. For you guys, it's at the high school level, it's a little bit tougher because you're also hoping that they did what they said to a certain extent. Right? And so that's a little bit tougher because you got to take a lot of what they say as with a grain of salt, but you also don't want to call a kid dishonest in any aspect. So I'd say it's you build up a longer leash than you think you need, and they don't need to be on the mound in December. They don't need to be competitively pitching in December. And if March 1 is the first game, you should be built up to about 60 pitches at that point. Live and aggressive. So it's just knowing what you guys are doing and building backwards from the day you need them, and having a number of pitches that you want to throw a guy day one. For us, our starters are only going to go 80 pitches in weekend one. That's the max they're going to get to. A couple of our relievers will be around that number if they have to get to that level. But we're not going over 80, and that's perfectly fine. And then the next week is 85, and the next week is 90, and then 95. And then it's kind of up to the game to decide when they're done throughout the next weeks. But they're still building as they hit game one, which I know is a little tough for high school age guys because the season's so much shorter. Mm-hmm. But so maybe you back that number up of when you want them to start high intently, a little bit earlier into maybe say the end of November, early December. So it's all just about what you want and what your numbers are.
Does the numbers change for you? Say, and I don't know if your guys are throwing outside all winter long or not, but from throwing inside and then your first bullpen outside, are you adjusting that at all?
So our bullpens, you'll get up to higher numbers. And then when you go into games, we lower that number because the intensity creates fatigue. So let's say, our guys have to come back ready to throw a 40-pitch live outing on, I think it's January 16th. Their bullpens, they're building up to 85 pitches. So they're at 85 and they come back and their outing is only 45 or 40 pitches, excuse me. Because the intensity changes what the fatigue factor is. And then we start lowering, once we go higher intent, we start lowering the number in the bullpen and start going up on the live.
Makes sense. How are you monitoring over winter break? Is it purely just a pitch plan that you hope that they follow? Is it do you have check-ins? Do you have check-ins? How does that kind of work for you?
So we sit with guys in our exit plan, and Coach Hatton and I sat with all the pitchers. We asked what they needed, what they felt they needed, because I like to get their input for a couple of reasons. One, I don't know really how their body feels because I'm not inside of their body. Two, it's their career. My career is long and over with, so they need to have some logical input on their career. And ultimately we'll give the best advice that we can that we think is going to be the right move. But we put a whole plan together. We put what they're doing on each day for, I think it's 10 weeks. And we hopefully at this level, they know this is what's going to get them there. And we'll touch base on a text message because we really can't do a lot of baseball communication during that December time period. We can check in on them, but hopefully it's a lot of putting together the plan and crossing your fingers that they get it done.
That's it. Do you have like you mentioned you player leadership too, that kind of plays into it too. I'm sure you have some semblance of a group chat that's coach centric and one that's player centric. And, if you have good leaders checking in with guys throughout the winter, that's sometimes the best way to do it. Photos from wherever you live, whatever facility you got, getting some work in, firing up the boys, they want to be back together.
Yeah, we have a good group of sophomores that, hey, make sure you get your stuff in today. let me know that you finished or what you're doing. And then hey, coach, so-and-so's not getting it done. So I only hear when guys aren't getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really hear about guys getting their job done, is what we call it, doing your job. We just hear the guys that don't do it. And so we have a good couple of third-year guys that really taken the reins, redshirted their freshman year. And we have a couple of freshmen that are actually have really tried to take the reins a little bit and have pushed those sophomores to be better leaders. So I think this year will be a lot different. I think we're going to let the players handle a lot of it, to be honest.
That's great. Yeah, player-driven leadership is always what we're striving for. Yeah. Player says it before the coach does. We all win.
And we keep a little bit more of our hair.
Hair.
Yeah,
what's hair?
I'm there.
It's going quickly.
Only without a hat, though. No shame. No shame in that game.
Well, Coach, I got it. This is the one comment we have to end with here. We didn't get a lot of questions here, but we just have JUCO bands for life, baby. And I was there, JC guys, where we were at from athletes angling. But Coach, do you want any final parting thoughts for anybody? Maybe a funny story for us or anything?
Funny story.
Give me your best Eddie Smith story that he'd want you to tell.
That he would live.
Oh, well, I can tell this one because he remembers it better than I do. So I've known Eddie since we were 10, maybe, and his dad and my uncle were good friends. So Eddie and I played against each other from, I think, 12 or 11 or 12 is when it started, all the way through high school and then 2 years of junior college. I still think he's making part of this story up, and I'm going to stick to that. I think we were 12 or 13, and I hit him with a pitch, and he had to go to the hospital. And that night, I don't remember this part of it, and this is where I think he's kind of making it up. My mom made me call and check in on him to see if he was okay, because he was friends with my uncle. And so years later, when I'm interviewing to join his staff at Lower Columbia, he brings this story up. Says, do you remember breaking or hitting me with a pitch and either breaking my ankle or I had to go get x-rays? And I said, no, I don't. And he goes, yes, your mother made you call and apologize and check in on me. And I said, that doesn't sound like my mom. But apparently I had to because they were friends with my uncle.
That's good.
Well, let's just hope looking back that you would have made that phone call today as a 12-year-old self of yours.
I don't know. Probably. I might have sent a text message.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Well, Coach,
Ian, I bet you got
Yeah.
a good fan story for us to close this out. Knowing that you coached in Canada, I've had some time playing in Canada, and those Canadian baseball fans are something else.
They are some of my favorite people to be around. The Canadians don't care what level you're at, what school you're at. We had guys from, when I was in Victoria, we had guys from University of Texas, from LSU, and the entire crowd's favorite player was a kid named Dustin Miller, and I'll never forget this kid, from Chico State. He had the best walk-up song, and he would get the 2,000 to 5,000 that were there each night up on their feet, dancing every time that he came to the plate. And every night that he played, he wasn't one of the better players, so he was a platoon guy. And every time that he played, there was fans standing outside of the locker room entrance, ready to hand him beers to go out, walk down the street to go wherever he wanted to go. I can tell it now because he's 25 years old, but they would sit next to, in Victoria, there's no blocking from the coaches area to where the fans are, and they would sit there and, hey, do you want a beer in the middle of the game? Do you want a hot dog? They would just get on guys, and it didn't matter. Like I said, if you were from, you just won a World Series in the College World Series, or you were a junior college guy, it did not matter. They loved you and they heckled you regardless. And I mean, even the kids. I remember in Victoria, my first year, we had elementary day. So there's 7,000 elementary kids in this stadium, and they're just ripping into every player that you could think about for any possible reason. And then they're like, hey, can we get a baseball? And then the kids ask for something. And like, well, you've just been so mean to me. And the Canadians were like, well, play better then. I don't know what to tell you. But they don't care. And I love that part of it up there. And especially Victoria. Victoria is a very special place to play and be. It's not as fun as an opponent, but it's a good place to be a hometown guy up there.
That's cool. Awesome.
Love it.
Baseball's the best. That's for sure.
Some days.
Well, yeah, it can be quite mean too. Yes, that is correct. Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your night tonight to come on the podcast and join us. We really, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. It's been fun.
This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thank
this
you,
season,
thank you.
Coach.
All right, guys.
Take us off live.